Jeff Beck, one of the most influential rock guitarists of all time, has passed away at the age of 78. The British musician rose to fame as part of the Yardbirds when he replaced Eric Clapton before forming the Jeff Beck Group with Rod Stewart. Beck's death was confirmed on his official Twitter page. It stated, on behalf of his family, "It is with deep and profound sadness that we share the news of Jeff Beck's passing. After suddenly contracting bacterial meningitis, he peacefully passed away yesterday. His family asked for privacy while they processed this tremendous loss." Jeff Beck is considered one of the top guitarists and probably one of the most influential guitarists of our time. When he was inducted into the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame for the second time in 2009, Beck had said, "I play the way I do because it allows me to come up with some of the sickest sounds possible." He's like, "That's the point now, isn't it? I don't care about the rules." He said, "In fact, if I don't break the rules at least 10 times in every song, then I'm not doing my job properly." One of my other favorite singers, Rod Stewart, had basically called Beck the greatest. Rod had said that Jeff Beck was on another planet. He said he took me and Ronnie Wood to the U.S. in the late 60s in his band, the Jeff Beck Group, and we haven't looked back since. Gene Simmons and Paul Stanley of Kiss also expressed their shock. Simmons called the news heartbreaking and adding, "No one played like Jeff." Paul Stanley also called Beck one of the all-time guitar masters and said he blazed a trail impossible to follow. Play on now and forever. Jeffrey Arnold Beck was born on June 24th of 1944. He had stated when he was younger, he said, "I was very interested in the electric guitar before I even knew the difference between an electric and an acoustic. The electric guitar seemed to be a totally fascinating plank of wood with knobs and switches on it. I just had to have one." Beck cited Les Paul as the first electric guitar player who impressed him. Beck had said that he had first heard electric guitar when he was 6 years old and heard Paul playing How High the Moon on the radio. He asked his mother what it was, and she replied it was an electric guitar with all tricks. He said, "That's for me." As a teenager, Beck learned to play on a borrowed guitar, but made several attempts to try to build his own instrument, first by gluing and bolting together cigar boxes for the body, and then using a fence post for the neck. Beck had commented that the first guitar he built was in 1956 because Elvis was out, and everything you heard was pop music with guitar. When Eric Clapton left the Yardbirds in 1965, Jimmy Page suggested hiring Beck, and he went on to play on hits like "I'm a Man" and "Shape of Things," where he was pioneering the use of feedback. Beck said that the feedback technique came as an accident. He said, "We played larger venues around 1964 and 1965, and the PA was inadequate, so we cranked up the level and then found out that feedback would happen." He said, "I started using it because it was controllable. You could play tunes with it." He was once playing with the Yardbirds, and a guy came up to him and said, "You know that funny noise that wasn't supposed to be there? I'd keep that in there if I were you." So we basically told him it was deliberate. Beck was the guitarist for the Yardbirds for nearly 2 years before he declared that he was going to quit music altogether. However, he quickly returned with the Jeff Beck Band, whose first 2 albums, Truth and Beck Ola, laid the ground for what's heavy metal music today. But the band was unhappy, and singer Rod Stewart and bassist Ronnie Wood quit in 1970 and joined the Small Faces. After that, Beck was injured in a car accident and he put his career on hold. When he recovered, Beck assembled the second lineup of his band and put out some more albums, but commercially they were unsuccessful, and then Beck ended up going solo in 1975. That year, Beck recorded an album, Blow by Blow, with Beatles producer George Martin. The album was an entire instrumental. Beck was able to use his guitar to basically replace the parts of the lead vocalist, an approach he would take for most of the rest of his career. The 1980s saw him collaborate with Nile Rodgers on an album called Flash, which contained its first hit single, a cover of Curtis Mayfield's People Get Ready with Rod Stewart on lead vocals. This actually earned him a Grammy Award. Beck continued his collaborative efforts throughout the 80s. He played with Mick Jagger, John Bon Jovi, Roger Waters, and also with Hans Zimmer for the score of Tom Cruise's movie Days of Thunder. As of more recently, on April 16, 2020, Beck released a new single, which he collaborated with Johnny Depp to cover John Lennon's song Isolation. He had said that this obviously had to do with the pandemic. He's like, "We weren't expecting to release it so soon, but given all the hard days and the true isolation that people are going through in these challenging times, we decided right now might be the right time for you to hear it." Beck is also featured on 2 tracks from Ozzy Osbourne's album released on June 24, 2022, the title track Patient Number 9 and 1,000 Shades. So speaking to his technique and the equipment that he used, Beck stopped actually using a guitar pick in the 1980s. Beck was able to produce a wide variety of sounds by using his thumb to pluck the strings, his ring finger on the volume knob, and his little finger on the vibrato bar. By plucking the string and then fading in and out with the sound, he was able to create a unique sound that resembled a human voice, among other effects. Along with Stratocasters, Beck occasionally played a Fender Telecaster and a Gibson Les Paul. His amplifiers were primarily Fender and Marshall. In his earlier days with the Yardbirds, Beck also used a 1954 Fender Esquire guitar, which is owned by Seymour Duncan, yes, that's Seymour Duncan of the Pickups, and it's housed in the Cleveland's Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. He played this guitar through a Vox AC30. Beck won 8 Grammy Awards and released 14 studio albums and 4 collaborative albums. He is going to be remembered for being one of the most influential guitar players of our time, and he is definitely going to be missed in the guitar community.